Well, it's less than 2 hours away, the much-anticipated testimony from ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa at the state capture inquiry. eNCA anchor Tumelo Mothotoane is outside the venue and joins us now. Tumelo, not long to go. What can we expect?
Absolutely. We're expecting the president to make his way, including his entourage, in a couple of hours' time, at least 2 hours' time. 10 a.m. is the prescribed time to which he's expected to testify. But, Jane, just to paint you a picture, we're just standing outside of the commission right here in Parktown in Braamfontein in Johannesburg. And I can already spot eNCA, police vehicles, just making sure that traffic does not interrupt the president and his entourage as they make their way. You can imagine this is one of the days with which South Africa has been waiting for some clarity from the president. Not only South Africans, though, also opposition parties, including DA leader John Steenhuisen, who joins me at this point to talk about what their expectations are. John, good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be with you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Under these circumstances, I mean, it's quite clear where the DA stands in terms of what they would like to hear. I've went through at least 24 questions that you've submitted to the commission. It's quite clear that the Cadre deployment policy is one that you would like the president to give clarity to today.
Absolutely. I think that the Cadre deployment policy lies at the heart of the hollowing out of the state, and particularly the rot that's set in at our state-owned entities. Every single one of those senior people deployed, Eskom, SAA, Denel, Alex Corps, were all subject to going through this Cadre deployment committee. And so I think that the president, as the chairperson of that committee for a considerable period of time during the state capture project, I think has a lot to answer for on behalf of the party around how those were made and what basis was used to make those appointments, because we're living now with the consequences. Nearly every one of our state-owned entities is in crisis because people were chosen not on their ability to do the job, but on their loyalty to the party, but more importantly, their ability to channel public money into the hands and pockets of connected cadres and individuals within the ANC.
Do you expect the president to incriminate himself? I mean, he may have chaired the Cadre deployment committee, but he himself is a comrade of other members of the ANC, and he was elected in that NEC back in 2007 until his presidency in 2017. Do you expect him to talk about, or rather take more responsibility on his role?
I would sincerely hope that he does, and I hope that he comes clean on exactly what happened during that period, and particularly his role in it. I think it's important for South Africans to know what the president knew and when he knew it, and most importantly, what he did about it thereafterwards. As we know, the Prevention of Organised Crime and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act makes it a criminal offence to be aware of corruption or coercion or abuse of state resources and not to report it to the authorities. It wasn't good enough just to be shocked every time these revelations were there. It was important to take action. And I think that the president needs to account very specifically today for both his acts of omission as well as any acts of commission.
Yeah. What would this then mean for the ANC, John? Because we're talking about an ANC leader who's spoken more about uprooting corruption and those members within the ANC who were implicated in any corruption. I'm sure you're aware of the step-aside rule and the step-aside issue, which is looming close to deadline, 30 days given to those members to resign. What do you expect from him in terms of how he will deal with the evidence that he'll provide today, which could implicate himself, his members, as well as his party?
Well, he's got to be careful, because one of the very few things that Batabile Dlamini got right was the whole notion of small Nyana skeletons. And everybody in the ANC knows each other's small Nyana skeletons. And I'm no doubt that the president is aware that should he spill the beans on some of the revelations of other comrades within his party, that there will be an equal and opposite reaction. I think it's also important to remember that the president often likes to portray himself as somebody who just dropped into the presidency from Mars. That wasn't the case. He spoke about 9 wasted years. He was at the top 6 table during those 9 wasted years. He was in the NEC. He was the deputy president of the organization. He was chairman of the Committee on Cadre Deployment. He was part and parcel of it. But most importantly, I would also like him to explain why, when questioned by the opposition repeatedly in Parliament, his natural inclination was to defend President Jacob Zuma rather than allow him to be able to be held accountable by the opposition in Parliament.
I mean, quite interestingly, as you make mention, you remind me of Zondo saying that the work of the Commission cannot continue without the ruling party. The president of the parties needed to give some clarity on some of the allegations presented here. However, when you look at some of the utterances from other ANC senior members, such as Jesse Duarte, accusing the Commission of being prosecutorial when dealing with Jacob Zuma, the the former president himself saying that Zondo is biased, calling for his recusal. How do you expect the Commission to handle the evidence he presents today?
Well, I think that the Commission's been very fair and open, and I think they've actually treated in many instances Mr. Zuma with kid gloves. I think that Mr. Zuma has defied subpoenas. He's defied a commission which he created, a judge which he appointed, and went on television and told everybody that they must make full disclosures to the committee, and now is running away from it because I think that he can see that Judge Zondo is not a patsy. He's not somebody who's going to come here and just do the bidding of the governing party. We've already seen there's a number of judges that were implicated in the state security agencies' cash for judicial questions that's emerged here under Mr. Mufamadi's testimony. And so I think we've got a judge who's actually serious about getting to the bottom of the problem. And he's right to do so, because we can't fix the problem if we don't understand what the problem is and what its genesis was and what its implications were. And I hope that what's going to come out of this commission is holding people accountable for what happened during that period, but then also firewalling our institutions to ensure that it never happens again. And that's why I was quite surprised at the testimony of the presiding officers of Parliament. Because if you look at the genesis of nearly every one of the major crises in South Africa, it began, whether it was SASSA, the SABC, the Gupta landings, the arms deal, the genesis of those started when parliamentary oversight was prevented from taking place by the presiding officers in Parliament.
Yeah. Lastly, very briefly, I mean, we can't underestimate Cyril Ramaphosa in this instance. He has a law degree, quite a broad understanding of how the law operates. He ensured that the NEC members, which he brings with as part of his team, amongst others being Minister Ronald Lamola, who's a lawyer himself, being the ANC policy head, Jeff Cadre. Surely that speaks to the calculated statement that they will be making.
I imagine the President's going to be very, very careful today about what he says. I think he's been watching the testimony of people like Bill Clinton and Tony Blair before various commissions that they've appeared before. I think he's going to be very cautious. We know the President is not one to take confrontation. He's conflict averse, and so I think he's going to be very, very measured in the statement. But if he leaves this commission today and at the testimony later of next month, without making a full disclosure, without being upfront and honest, but most importantly, what I would like to see is him saying, we're going to end the policy of cadre deployment. We're going to build a civil service in South Africa based on capable individuals, put there on merit, not the colour of the party card, and people are going to serve the citizens of the country and not the party.
John, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much
for
joining us this morning. DA leader John Steenhuisen right here with us during our live coverage of the President coming to appear right here at the Zondo Commission. As you've heard, a lot of expectations coming from the DA, including how they aim to deal with that cadre deployment policy, which they're calling unconstitutional, the root of some of the looting that's been alleged against the ANC. But Jane, more still to come, expected to talk to Father Smangaliso Mkhatshwa about what his expectations are from the President.
Great, and we shall be back with you then. Thanks for that, Tumelo.